So we're going to have a bit of a conversation here today, and about well-being and about indigenous ideas about well-being. And so I'm not going to do a whole lot of talking. I'm going to let the farmers talk, and we have two farmers here today, Alfredo Cortez from Guatemala and Gerald Miles from Wales. And they're going to share with us a little bit about how this idea of well-being from an indigenous perspective is integrated in food and farming. And I think I might just start a little bit of framework on indigenous perspectives of well-being. And I can't say that I'm an expert in this, but I've had a little bit of experience researching it in Guatemala, in the community, the Maya Chi community. And what I found initially was that what they were talking about well-being, or buen vivir, or in their language, utzilkaslim, had similarities to different definitions across the Americas. So people in South America, in Brazil, in Peru, in Ecuador, Colombia, they were saying some of the same things about how they interpreted well-being, which is very different from more Western perspectives of well-being. Reciprocity, relationship with Mother Earth, respect for and commitment to nature, and this connection to food and farming is hugely important. And this is, between groups that have never communicated with each other before, for sure. Some groups that are extremely isolated as well. So well-being has this connotation, but it's also become kind of a political movement. So it has this political and cultural framing, which is about producing alternatives to mainstream development. So degrowth, sustainable livelihoods, questions about land, low carbon lifestyles, indigenous values, and food sovereignty. So you have these two different elements. You have this kind of political platform, and then you have this definition that's coming from indigenous peoples, which, as I mentioned, is very different than in Western ideas of well-being. And so something, as someone who studies agroecology, I was fascinated by how well-being, buen vivir, is connected to agroecology and connected to food sovereignty, connected to local movements around these ideas, and connected to the cultural kind of movements and practices that surround food and agriculture. So I started doing a bit of research into this and found out that these folks here, including Alfredo, who I've worked with for a number of years, have a specific name for it, for well-being. And what I feel that Alfredo and some other leaders in the community there, they're putting forth a platform, a development platform that speaks to these values, these ancestral indigenous values of well-being. And so I found it really fascinating. And so I came to the UK about 4 months ago, and I got the sense immediately that from people here that this kind of ancestral, this indigenous, or these values and principles that are a bit more spiritual and cultural to agriculture was dead. And I didn't believe it, and I still don't believe it. And then I saw this video that was shared to me about Gerald, and now I really don't believe it. And so I'm excited to kind of draw parallels to these two stories, indigenous farmers who are deeply connected to the land and deeply care about the land and the communities that they work in. So that's all I have to say, really, just kind of introducing the session and my thoughts on it. And I'm gonna pass the mic over to Alfredo, who's there in his community in Chesiguan, Guatemala, with his family and friends, it looks like. And Alfredo, maybe you can start off and tell us about Buen Vivir and Utzilkaslim and your organization and your farming.
Perfecto. Eh, muy bien, pues gracias por la oportunidad y
Yes, great. Thank you for this opportunity. And here we have Feliciana with us, who is president of the Association of the Committee of Small Scale Producers in this area, peasant small scale producers in our area. I also have my family here with me and a great friend who's joining us, who's here. And he's the technician, let's say. He's helped me with the computer and he's helped connect us to the internet so that we can be with you here today. And it's great to be here. So, the issue of the peasant Mayachi concept of living well, of a good lifestyle, of well-being. Well, what's this about? Well, this is a project of human life. It's about living. It's about humanizing what we do. Now, why do we think in this? Why do we have these ideas? Well, we are a network of small scale peasant farmer producers, and we have come together. We're organizing ourselves to place a new value at the heart of what we do, looking at the good practices that exist, that have existed for a long time, that are means for feeding ourselves, and feeding ourselves is what is most important. And it's about looking at the great challenges of climate change. And we have to look at all of the threats that we face, how we are so vulnerable on this planet. But also, it's about looking at the concept of buen vivir, of living well. Now, as small scale food producers, women, youth, we have sought to build an alliance among producers to share experiences, experiences on how we can recover the right practices, how we can help the soil to recover, how we can protect the water, how we can go back to the ancestral ways. Here in our community, this is what we're doing. We are now going back to the habitat, going back to the surroundings, active surroundings, active living, which is good life for us. Now, the concept of living well, buen vivir, well, this is focused all around agroecology. Living well, buen vivir, it means caring for Mother Earth. It means having fertile soils. It means not polluting our surroundings. It means having good food, the right food, food which is healthy, produced in a healthy way, consuming nutritional, healthy food, taking care of the forests, restoring our woodlands. The areas of agricultural production should be protected using the very same resources that Mother Nature provides us with in the first place. That's the basis, that's the underlying concept of ensuring that we have the fruit, the vegetables around us, the plants, the water, the soils that we have, and them feeding us, protecting our water, safeguarding our resources, and having a network of people who come together, small scale producers who come together to defend the right to Mother Earth, having access to food in our communities. Uh, Looking at the examples of what we've seen in the pandemic, the lockdowns that we faced, the fact that countries have closed down, we've been locked away, and our families, we are still here producing food. Now, we weren't able, there were many things we were not able to do, but we were still here in our fields producing food and having this space available for us. It is about food, but it's so much more than that. Living well is about having our own independence. our own food sovereignty, being able to take choices about how we produce food, and then also exchanging food, the bargaining, saying, you've got a hen, I've got fish, I've got corn, you've got beans. And so let's swap these, let's exchange among ourselves. And we have different forms of agriculture that are carried out by different people, and people exchange among themselves. They share. And really, it's living well is an art. It's a form of art. It's building from the grassroots up, building from community level, because the resources are there. Nature provides us with the resources, and we just have to make use of them. We have to promote them. We have to create centers in each of our communities which can give an example to people on how to carry out sustainable farming, having healthy, nutritious food available, food which is easy to produce, which is produced so close to where we are, and which Mother Nature provides us with. Mother Nature is there with its the natural life of Mother Earth draws us towards this form of living well, living correctly, and we can use organic fertilizer, we can use medicinal herbs, medicinal plants to keep illness at bay, and using fertilizer, but not artificial fertilizer, fertilizer that comes from our surroundings, from our plants and animals that we have around us. And in this way, we can feed our animals, feed the hen that you can hear in the background. And so this concept of living well, buen vivir, it has been a process we've been working on for 18 years at least, or 20 years, and we have been fighting not to lose the values. We've been fighting not to forget what our parents, what our grandparents, our ancestors have passed on, the leaders who promote living well. What is that about? Well, it's about recovering. It's placing a value on ancestral peasant farming practices which have given life to us. And we exist thanks to these ideas from our ancestors, this legacy that we have inherited as practices that we still use. And it's about going deeper into this. Now, we are 16 communities that have come together in a network. We bring together women, we have corn producers, we have those who focus more on cattle and livestock, those who produce fruit and vegetables. And so it's really about coming together in our diversity and bringing these techniques and practices to the table, making people aware of them, and ensuring that good living can be put into practice. So in the field, in our families, establishing foundations for what is most important, and what is most important is food sovereignty. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias, Alfredo. Qué bueno la plática.
Thank you very much, Alfredo. Thank you very much for these words. So now we can hear from Gerald Miles, a producer, and then we can have questions. Is that okay?
All right. So I'll pass it over now to Katie and Gerald from Wales.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm the Wales coordinator for the Seed Sovereignty Programme. And Gerald asked me to come here to be part of this discussion and to introduce him. So I'm just going to speak briefly and then I'm going to pass to him. But yeah, in the Seed Sovereignty Programme, I work with growers and farmers across Wales to build a more resilient seed system. And I started the job in 2018. And I was basically really lucky to cross paths with Gerald. So Gerald is a Welsh farmer. He's been farming since he was 16, and he's quite a bit older than 16 now. So he's been farming for a long time on the cliffs overlooking the sea in Pembrokeshire. And basically Gerald, when I came into the job of strengthening seed sovereignty in Wales, Gerald advised me and guided me on how to build seed sovereignty. And what was the most special about that is he introduced me to some of the older, more traditional farming techniques in Wales, and how important it is to preserve these older traditional farming techniques if we want to preserve our seed diversity and some of our older seed varieties. So that was like a massive learning that I had from Gerald when I came into this work. And so together, Gerald and I have worked together to build the Llafenni network with other farmers and with other growers across Wales. And this is like a network of people who are trying to revive our old Welsh grains together. And what's really special about the Llafenni network is we've got older farmers who are working together with younger new entrants to farming. And this has been like a really special thing for me to be part of, because Gerald and other older farmers have like generously shared their knowledge, and they've taught us about the traditional farming practices, and they've shared seed with us, like very special seed, which we wouldn't have had access to. So like black oats, which they've been growing on their farms Gerald and Iwan are two of the last people to be growing these oats in Wales, and they've shared the seeds with us through this network. So it's been really special. And Gerald is going to tell you more about the story of the black oats, which he introduced me to, his black oats. And we began this search for other people who had black oats in Wales. And so we've made a film with the Seed Sovereignty Programme and the Gaia Foundation and the director Andy Pillsbury. We've made a short film that like tells the story of Gerald and Iwan and Owen and these Welsh black oats. So I think we'll see the film first, and then Gerald will speak a lot more. So yeah, thank you.
Dan dy wallt modrwyog hir, mae dy enw hoff yn barchus, ymhol lle o fewn y sir. Cyfaill wyt i bob o'n heddw, fel i'r tlodion ymhongan. Yn y plasti fel y bwthyn, roedd yn galw ar dy dro.
Edrych am ei llafur di, I fi wedi'n bwysig, agos wen nad ci yn tyfu cyrchdi a wedi'n twddi siprys. In Cymru o'n nhw'n bwydo siprys, a mae siprys wedi wneud o farlis a cyrchdi. Bues I am dros 20 mlynau yn wylo am y cyrchdi yma. Os yw I adfart yn papur ffermio, a gys mi ddim ateb a wer papur hwn wedi mynd dros I wlad I gyd. So o'n i'n wedi penderfynu, wel, bydd yn ei ffili.
A nes I cwrdd a Gerald Miles, ffarmwr o Sir Benfro, ac oedd wedi taro fi fel dyn ysbrydoledig, dyn o weledigaeth. A nes I clywed am y stori yma o chwilio am cyrch di. A oedd wedi bod yn chwilio am y cyrch yma am 20 mlynedd ar ôl iddyn nhw diflannu o Gymru. Gweithio fel cerddor yn chwilio I hen ganeuon Sir Ceredigion ac yn ymchwilio treftadaeth diwylliedig y sir. Nath hwn taro fi fel haenen arall o'r treftadaeth yma, bod ni'n ddim yn unig colli elfennau diwylliannol, ond bod ni'n colli technegau a dulliau amaethyddol, a bod ni'n colli'r hadau yma. Ac o'n i'n gwneud yr ymchwil yma, nes I cyfarfod â Iwan Evans, coedfodre. Ac oedd Iwan wedi bod yn rhannu ambell I gân gyda fi. Ond yn troi mas bod Iwan yn tyfu'r cyrch yma, cyrch di. A o'n I ddim yn gwybod hynny ar y pryd, ond di cysylltiad rhwng Iwan a Gerald. Oedd Gerald wedi bod yn chwilio am y cyrch yma, a oedd Iwan wedi bod yn tyfu nhw. Ar ôl cwrdd â Gerald a gwybod bod Iwan yn tyfu'r cyrch yma, oedd yn gwneud gwbl synwyr i
Wel, sy'n ni'n meddwl bod y llafur wedi cael ei dyfu. Wel, sy'n ni'n meddwl bod y llafur wedi cael ei dyfu.
Well, I'm not sure what happened with the video. I can try to fix this or we can move on. So sorry about that. It doesn't seem to be going on this end. If someone else would like to try it, I can share the link, or I'm so sorry. How about, let's see if it loads, and
How about you try it one more time, and then if it doesn't work, people will have the link and they can watch it themselves. Yeah.
Give me just one more moment here. We'll see what we can do. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is going to work. Oh. Okay, I had to move it forward a bit, but let's see what we can do here. Bear with me.
Wel, tan diwedd y 60au, oedd y cerch yn cael ei dorri a beinder ac yn y blaen, fel oedd e wedi cael ei wneud am 20 mlynedd cyn ni. Ond wedyn doeth rhai combines, combine, a wedyn oedd y llafur cyrch mae lower i hir, oedd e'n rownd o'r machine, oedd ati dipyn mwy o ffwdan, so felly dyna pam farw'r oes y cyrch. Wel ie, rhyw chydig sydd fan hyn, wel allu dweud rhyw 2 ffarm na 2 falle, bydde yn yr holl ardal yma, bydde yn ei dyfu yna fe. A'n diwedd dim ond fi oedd ar ôl yna fe. Fi eitha balch yna fe, achos bydde ni eitha balch i weld cerch yn cael ei dyfu total. Yn wedi, wel dim ond cerch yna fe, ond o'r hen sort yna fe. O na fydde ni eitha ples, achos mwyaf tebyg. Felly daw i fan hyn, so ni'n gwybod fel mae bethau'n newid.
A nawr mae air i fi ffeindio'r llafur di yma, i ddwrnu dy'n gili, a'i siario beth maen nhw'n gwybod bod ti llafur. Mae wedi
I'm afraid technology can only go so far. I'm going to share the link with everyone and apologize for my computer. Yeah, it's just kind of spinning now. And
so people can watch the film anytime and they can watch it straight after the session as well. Although I know it's a shame to not see it right now. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I can just say one thing that really moved me and resonated with something I saw in Guatemala was how these old varieties connect with language. And I think that is a really strong point of buen vivir, of well-being. Language, the old practices, the values behind it, and the old varieties, hugely important. There's no way to quantify how important that is, I think, from just an observer. But I'm going to put this link here in the chat and everyone can watch the video. Gerald, would you like to present?
Yes, certainly. Okay.
I'm sorry about the video again.
No, that's fine. Gee. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? I hope.
I can hear you.
Good. Okay. Okay. Right. Let me introduce you to my farm and my family. This is my family. We have 4 sons, my Anne and myself. We live near the sea. It's a coastal farm. And we have it's a mixed sustainable farm. And I'm very lucky to be born here. I'm very lucky to live on this place. To me, it's very special. I look at myself as a guardian of this place. It's my green heaven. And we have a lot of volunteers that come and stay with us, and the whole farm affects them. And this has been the grounding of who I am today. One of the main things that turned me to be stronger and to look to try to change things and be against corporate power trying to take over our food production and our seeds. And this was a trial of GMOs, maize, that were going to be grown near about 6 kilometers from my farm back in 2001. And we campaigned for about 6 weeks against this to prevent this being grown in our area. This introduced me to other campaigners all over the UK and Europe. And as you can see from this scene, this was a scene in North Wales where we had campaigned to try and stop these crops, and we destroyed it. And some were arrested. I was interviewed by the police, but they had no evidence against me. From there, late in 2003, with being involved with other campaigners all over the UK, we decided to demonstrate in London, and I drove my tractor 380 miles from my farm to London, to the doorstep of Parliament. There was about nearly 2,000 people involved in this demonstration. Katie, would you like to introduce Llafur Ni? This is how in the last 4 or 5 years, I got involved with Katie from the Gaia Foundation on seed sovereignty. And we started connecting with other farmers. Katie used to, go on.
Yeah, well, just like as I said in the introduction, basically that I met Gerald, and Gerald had this knowledge of traditional farming techniques that he was willing to share with other people. And this was also linking to a decline in seed diversity in Wales. We were realizing that there was a lot less of a diversity of grain crops in Wales, in the Welsh fields. And so together we formed Llafur Ni, which is a part of the seed sovereignty program. And like Gerald said, it's a network in which we work together, older farmers and younger farmers. And basically we share seed and we share knowledge. Yeah.
And here I'm showing you the seeds of oats that we grew from a handful of seeds that are very scarce. They were from a seed bank in Aberystwyth, and we're trying to bulk up the seeds to make them available for other farms, because I believe passionately that these ancient varieties have the answer in climate change and to be more sustainable in farming. This is, well, it's the last slide I have. This depicts everything to me. This was taken back 50 years ago, when my father used to harvest the corn, that's black oats there, and they make a rick. Black oats means Llafur Di, and this is the harvest, Canea, getting in and creating a stack of these sheaves. That was the way we used to store it. And we would be thrashing it in the autumn and in the winter. My father used to go around contracting with a thrashing machine to other farms so that they could have the seed, extract the seed from the actual straw. The straw would be the bedding for the cows and the cattle, and the seed is to be fed to them. And this is like in front of our farmhouse, you can see a van. This was a grocery van that used to come round once a week when there was no supermarkets. You could say it was the ideal world, but I just think we have got to go back to more local production and local supply to the community. One of the best things we've done on the farm is create a CSA, community supported agriculture, where we grow vegetables for about 50 families, and they come to the farm every week to collect their vegetables. Being involved in this and the well-being of us as farmers and as a community, to me, is very important, because we are forgotten as farmers and growers. We produce food, yet we do it namelessly. We've lost respect for food, respect for farmers. What you see on the news every day or whatever what makes headline news is when the shelves on supermarket run empty, like it did in this COVID pandemic we're suffering. No mention about the farmers and how they are. farmers in the UK, the highest suicide rate is amongst farmers, because it's a lonely, isolated life, and it's become more isolated the more mechanization has come into farming. See, like you see from that picture, we were working together. When I started farming at about 16, we used to grow potatoes, cereals, and we had a dairy herd. And I used to employ about 35 local people and 2 full-time people. Now it's just us as a family and my son running the farm. And this is how things have changed. And we need to go back to more sustainable and a community shade.
And Gerald, if I could add something, like I feel like by coming together through the Llafenni network, like one of the really special things is we've been trying to revive some of the old Welsh grain seeds that are less available anymore, and we've been donated some of the seeds by IBERs, and we've been bulking them out and growing them together. But one of the really special things is like the communal feeling of, like, we've sown these oats together in the fields in Gerald's farm before the pandemic, and we've threshed them together on Yuan's farm. And I feel like in trying to revive the seeds together, like it's brought this sense of community as well, and like this network. And that's what I found really special about working with Llafenni. I don't know if you agree.
No, I do. And what I found is, I found very, when I started looking for ancient grains, like I have with wheat and other varieties, I found that I was on my own in this project, but by the creation of Llafenni and seed sovereignty, I found it that I wasn't alone. There was a lot of people out there, and seeing Alfredo on his farm today and his family, as farmers, we have the same thinking. It's really empowered me to really talk on the screen and see him on the screen, and we have the same values. And this I think we should invest more time in and share more, because as us as farmers together, we can be powerful and we can be independent. People need our food, so if we stand together, it will be very empowering.
Amazing. Yeah. Thanks, Gerald. I think you nailed it. For me, talking about values and transcending across, vast distances, farmers, particularly Indigenous farmers, having shared values and having that drive, sustainability, is something that's not talked a whole lot, I don't think, in agricultural circles. We talk about practices and techniques and how this will do this and this, but something about the values, the spiritual values, the communal values, the ancestral values is so forgotten. And
because I strongly believe that my farm has got a spirit, a soul, because it's given me a life, a living, down to the depths of losing everything and bringing back. And having volunteers that stay on my farm, they fall in love with the place. I had a young lady that came to my farm to work for about 4 months. And anyway, she was very quiet, very reserved. And one day she collapsed, and I had to get an ambulance to take her to hospital. She told me that she'd been on drugs for about 4 or 5 years of her life, and she found strength on my farm to fight it. She now has left my farm. She has gone on an organic college, and now she's working on an organic farm, driving a big tractor with 6 furrows on the back. In the summer, she sent me a photo of her driving a combine harvester. Now, if that can give that power back to a younger generation, there's nothing like having your hands in the soil and seeing your seeds grow. And this is part of where empowerment, it gives you pride and gives you it's very difficult to describe, gives you well-being.
Thank you, Gerald. Well, there's something that I would like to, with Alfredo's permission and Feliciano, I would like to show a couple of photos and that I took in their community that for me kind of embodies this idea of buen vivir, and it also speaks to some of the things that Gerald was talking about. So I'm just going to share my screen here for a few minutes, and Alfredo, if you want to intervene, please feel free to talk. Just a few photos that I'd be really happy to share. So something that is really apparent for me in this community, and I think Alfredo would agree, is that seeds, saving seeds, passing down seeds from generation to generation, and have a whole lot of meaning. And the varieties of corn there, and beans and squash also are extremely important for well-being, for culture. And some of these varieties are specific to just one valley or a handful of families that have survived, just immense. I mean, these are genocide survivors. Alfredo is a genocide survivor. And so guarding these seeds is like something that they would risk their lives for. And I mean, this is a photo I took of a father with his son and his grandfather farming in a plot of land. These are displaced farmers, survivors, terrible massacres, farming their milpa, corn, beans, and squash, by hand with hoes. And the joy that I just watched this family farm together, and it made me think a lot about what well-being means in production of food and livelihoods, plant varieties, passed down. Alfredo with his malanga. These are plants that were so well used by their grandparents, and now with modern varieties, with less and less people farming, they're falling out. Yet they're resilient to climate change, to floods, to drought. This is Alfredo's agroforestry plot, with probably up to 100 varieties of food plants, I would imagine, some of them semi-wild, fruit trees, coffee, milpa, all growing on the same plot in a semi-forested environment that's experiencing terrible drought. Again, back to varieties of plants and seeds. Amaranth, the ancient crop, being recuperated in the zone right now. No sé, Alfredo, quizás quieres hablar sobre estos fotos.
I don't know, Alfredo, would you like to tell us something about these photos? Well, yes, of course, friend Nathan. So this is the amaranth production, and so we consume the herbs of this, but there's also, we harvest the seeds as well, and the seeds can be ground down into a flour, and this is, it is very nutritious. It has a lot of nutrition. There's a lot of nutrition in the amaranth flour.
Parcela.
Ajá, bueno.
Do you want to tell us about your plot of land? Yes. So this is a photo of my plot, my patch, and you can see lots of different varieties of crops. And here I have over 90 different species, different plants, different herbs, different forms of life. And all of this closes the circle. There's a lot of production going on right here. A lot of food that comes out of this small patch of land. And I share this food with friends, and we try to also take the crops elsewhere and try to explain that we try to promote this way of producing food. And it's all integrated really in one small area. There's a lot of work that goes into this, but it's so important at this time. It's so important to seek out alternatives. And in my patch of land, I'm very happy. And I try to share the knowledge of these ways of producing food. And this is the area available, and people can come in, women's groups, students groups can come to study and learn, young people can come in, and people can come in even to do, people doing internships in agriculture, people, students who are studying agriculture, and maybe they want to do a project on my farm, or they want to study my farm, they want to look at organic production, or they want to look at how to monitor pests in an organic way, or how to deal with different microorganisms, how to produce organic fertilizer, how to produce fruit and vegetables in this small area in an organic way. So there's a lot of, it's highly integrated here in such a small area. And this is incredibly important in our area. We're being visited by so many different people, different groups of people, other farmers from elsewhere. They come in, the Kekchi come in, and the Chiquimula, and they come from east, from west, from the whole region, from all over Guatemala. They've come to visit this small patch of land to learn about it. And it's highly sustainable with practices which are very friendly to the environment. And it has shown its sustainability. And in our family, there are 5 of us. And in the community, there are many plots similar to mine. There are many who have come in to see this small patch of land. And as I always say, my patch, I want to work on it. I want to make it a model. I want to have it as a way of educating people on family farming and how this is all possible, as an example to others. And maybe you can tell us also about the importance of native seeds as well, and native seeds and how they tie in with buen vivir, or living well. So the native seeds that we have for our corn, well, we have black corn, we have yellow corn, we have white, red, orange corn, all of these different types of corn. Well, we conserve the seeds, we store them, and these are seeds which have made history and which are the memory of nutrition in our areas for the indigenous peoples in Guatemala. And we try to conserve all the seeds we can, And this has meant that we've been able to have nutrition for ourselves, local nutritious food, and having day-to-day nutrition to keep us healthy. Sometimes we have difficulties in terms of drought. Sometimes there are dry conditions, but we have different varieties that are adapted to dry conditions. We've conserved these, we have kept them over time. We have a great stock of seeds that are adapted to the climate in our area. We have these native seeds that have been developed here in this local area. So many different varieties, not just of corn, but bananas, local varieties of banana, local varieties of beans, so red beans, black beans, rice as well, and so many other crops. And you can see these forms of squash that we have as well. We've got camote, we've got different herbs.
El maracuyá, que es para
And
frescas.
then there's maracuya, which is a fruit that you can drink. So instead of using dyes and coloring, you can see that there's enough color in our local area. There are wild plants that are incredibly nutritious and incredibly colorful, and you can drink their goodness. And there's a huge diversity of native, locally produced foods which have a huge nutritional value, and we're trying to go back to the value of these foods. And it's really about living well, about having a healthy life and an active life. There's always so much to do on the farm that it keeps you healthy.
Muchas gracias, Alfredo. Muy bonito.
Thank you, Alfredo. Very nice.
So I think we have a half an hour left, and I'd like to open it up to questions. I see we have a few questions here, and I'm just going to field these questions to our participants. Gerald, I see, is there an equivalent word or phrase for buen vivir in the Welsh language? Buen vivir meaning well-being in Spanish. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. That's a difficult one. I fod mwynhau I hunain. Cadw ei ysbryd yn iach. Keep our spirit healthy. Perhaps someone out there that knows better Welsh than I do can give us an answer on this.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me. Could you say it one more time?
Cadw ein ysbryd yn iach. Ysbrydiad yn gili. Spirits together. And this is, to me, this is more important than ever, because here we are talking to a glass screen. We can't even reach out to each other. And it doesn't help our well-being. But the advantage is that we can see Alfredo out on his farm thousands of kilometers away. So that today, that's made my day.
Thank you. The next question is asking about a nutritional profile for the ancient grains from this project IBERS.
Katie, do you want to answer that?
So IBERS is a plant research centre in Aberystwyth in Mid Wales, a plant breeding centre, and they were the people who donated they had the older Welsh oat seeds in their gene banks, and they donated them to us to trial. So that was the role of IBERs in our Llavenni network, was them donating seeds from the seed bank and also advising us and helping us with trialing them on farms. We haven't had any nutritional analysis, have we, Gerald, of the older Welsh oats? We were given them in really small quantities. So like some like I'm going to say this wrong now, Gerald, Cerlloyd. I'm pronouncing it not very well, but the Cerlloyd oat, we were given like 20 seeds. So that's what we've been doing in Llaverni, is growing them on farms together, but basically just trying to increase the quantities and bulk them out because we don't have access to large quantities anymore. So for those seeds, we haven't had any nutritional analysis, but there is anecdotes and stories of people eating oats in Wales for a long time, but we haven't actually been able to eat the black oats yet, have we, Gerald? Because which is crazy because we've been growing them. Well, Gerald's been growing them like pretty much his whole life. But the oats have a hull on them, which we've struggled to have the machinery and the knowledge of how to remove the hull and be able to eat them. It's something we've been working on. And we're very close to being able to eat them, actually. So it's something we're working on, isn't it? Like processing them, eating them, and looking at their nutritional analysis. And in many ways, like, well, I don't know very much about these Welsh oats that we've received from the gene bank and that we've put in the ground, other than that they used to be grown in Wales a long time ago. So we don't know that much. In a way, we're kind of like relearning and rediscovering and trying to find out information, because it's like a bit of a mystery to us in a way, what these oats are really like, these older oats that were grown for so long. And that's for me. I mean, Gerald, I don't know what you want to say about that.
Yeah, because the hull is the shell that protects the grain. And that's how most varieties were grown like that. See, modern breeding of varieties to suit modern farming and to suit food production, they've bred them without the shell. They've gone for varieties without the hull. But there's been analysis done, like einkorn, which is a variety of wheat that dates back to nearly the Bronze Age. They're finding that the shell protects the seed and protects it against any insects that attacked it once it's put in the earth. So it's nature's way of protecting the seed. Also, einkorn has very high nutrients in it. It's been analyzed that it's got more goodness qualities in it than modern varieties. This is something we're going to try to do with all the oats and all of the varieties, because I do think it's far more healthy for you, these old varieties, that the modern ones have been bred. And most likely Alfredo will say the same.
Maybe I'll ask Alfredo, ¿ustedes piensan que las variedades ancestrales son más nutritivos?
Alfredo, do you think the ancestral varieties that you have are more nutritional and better than the hybrid versions or the modern versions that we have of the seeds or grain? Yes, of course, yes. We have taken part in a number of events with comparisons, and we've seen the results. We've seen the greater nutrition, the much higher nutritional value that native plants have. There are some studies that have been carried out, and they haven't given us all of the outcomes of these studies in great detail. But what we have seen is that native corn, at least, has a much higher percentage of protein. It has much more micronutrients in it. And you can see that. It's obvious. If you look at the impact on the human being. You can see a person who is well nourished, who eats local plants, local crops. You can see that the people that eat local produce are much more resistant to local disease. They're much more healthy. Local plants have a much higher concentration of nutritional elements, nutrients, and this is much better than these hybrid versions. And it's the hybrid versions have a lot of fluff inside, or basically they have a lot of mass which doesn't actually provide. It's a lot of hulk which doesn't actually provide any nutrition, and we've seen that in lots of different crops that we have. We have the balanga, which is a lot more nutritious than any other industrial food, and maybe a herb, a native herb such as macui or bledo, or some of the other ones that we have. We have shoshpili, and we have a type of lettuce as well. If you compare that with the industrial version, then you can see the huge difference. So yes, we see this. We can see that there's an obvious difference in terms of the nutritional value. If you compare a hybrid or industrial product or to a more local native produce, you can see that the industrial version is adulterated. The natural version respects the cycle of nature and is a fruit of that natural cycle. There's no adulteration that takes place. There's no alteration. There's no artificial modifications that take place. So agriculture of this time, agroecology, respects the cycles of nature. So there's a huge difference, and we can see that. We can see that as farmers. We can see it with the people and the food that they eat. Thank you.
I'm going to move on to the next question, and it's to both Gerald and Alfredo. If they could shed light on how they market what they produce to earn a living. Maybe Gerald first, if you could tell us a bit about how you sell your products. How do you make a living off of what you do?
Number one, I don't make a living from it, because we need the machinery like a dehuller. I sell some of my as seeds to other farmers, as well the black oats. Horse breeders like to use black oats because black oats has more energy in it than white oats. And horse owners, especially those that compete with the horses, like to use it. But that's the lacking we have. That's the unknown X factor then that we need in Wales, is to create like a cooperative machinery hub, so we can all share these varieties and share the machinery. You see, one thing, bakers, for instance, in Wales, they all get a variety of flour from a place in England, and it's all mixed varieties, unknown. They don't disclose what varieties, but there isn't a Welsh mixed variety. So there is a market out there if we could combine and have the machinery to really do it and make our own mixed flour from wheat. And as well with oats, you know, oats, you can make into oat milk. You could make Welsh oat milk out of Black Supreme, black oats. But no, we don't make a living out of the cereals, you know, the corn we grow. It's our main income is from the cattle and our CSA, and as well, main income is tourism. It's mad to think that back in 1800s, this farm had 22 people living on it. 11 of them worked on the farm and 11 of them worked in a quarry, which is called Blue Lagoon now. We need to change the whole thing of that farming. We need to take the product into our own management and control and sell it direct locally.
Thank you, Gerald.
Could I find what, how does Alfredo sell his?
Muy bien. Nosotros, nuestro mercado, nuestra producción.
Well, our production, our produce, well, basically, it mainly, well, a large share of it is for feeding ourselves. So our families produce and they feed themselves with that produce. So it's for our own,
Va en el mercado.
it's our own consumption. And then we also have a local market, a town market. And so on Sundays and on Thursdays,
Y productoras.
most of the producers in the area, they take their fruit and veg to the market, and there is a market nearby, and all of the local small-scale farmers come together. They sell in this local market in the town, and there are lots of people living in the nearby area who then come in and they buy. So people living in the urban areas, so we can give them all different types of produce. We got bananas, we got yuca, we got sweet potato, we got everything is seasonal. It's all what has been produced in that season at that time and what is available in the fields. And we have a law, actually, a law which says that small-scale producers can sell their produce to the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Education then uses this to feed children in schools. It's a school feeding program, so it means that we can sell to the schools, to the school canteens, and but there's no effort to scale this up. There's no effort to it's difficult to actually scale up, and we find that there are producers who are providing food to schools, and this is excellent. Is one way of earning some income from our agricultural production. And then another source of income is coffee. So the coffee that we produce in Bajarapaz, in this area, we speak about the great potential that coffee has. It's a source of income for producers, and then livestock, cattle, hens, or poultry. We can take the eggs to the local market as well. We can sell all of that locally, and this is a small source of income for our families. It helps us with the costs of sending the children to school. It helps us to buy clothing, and that there are other things that we can't get in our community that then we can buy elsewhere thanks to this small income. So this is what we experience in our local community, and there are some problems, of course. There's the issue of migration, people wanting to leave their local areas, and but we try to offer support to farmers. We try to provide advice, offer advice to people. We help people to plan how they can work in their fields. work on their plots of land, look at how they can increase their production or use different methods. But basically, the market that exists is very local. It's very much at regional level. Now, coffee is also sold nationally. So that is the one crop that we can produce and sell elsewhere. We can sell it around the country, but most of our produce, except for coffee, is sold very locally. We don't really have contacts which allow us to sell further. We just we can't sell further afield. We sell at a very low price locally. We don't have any other alternative really, and so these are just the steps that we can make. It's very clear what the market is for us. Selling vegetables and coffee. We can sell vegetables on the market, but coffee is the only thing we can really sell further afield, and we're still looking about this. We're fighting to build a better market for ourselves. Thank you.
I'm just going to make a quick note, and I'll show a photo here as well. The market is very special in Rabinal. It's ancient. It's very well functioning, and it gives hundreds of smallholders the opportunity to sell their produce. The problem is the low prices that they receive in return for a lot of hard work, and it could be looked at in many different ways, as a driver for migration, as a driver for loss of lack of interest in farming by young people. There are certain crops that you can grow in the area that bring more money, like tomatoes, but they tend to be grown in greenhouses that can be a bit destructive sometimes. So it's a complicated situation, but I think maybe Alfredo and Feliciano would agree. People are very attached to their crops, and they continue to farm because it's a lifestyle choice, and it also brings food to the family before they sell it. And I think that's Alfredo's kind of principle for his organization: grow for your food first, then sell. And in a way, during the pandemic, when the market closed for, probably the first time in 30 or 40 years, and people couldn't buy anymore, those who were growing food, they were very resilient. In the United States, we were freaking out about toilet paper and all the shelves running empty. In Guatemala, people that we would consider to be poor in westernized culture were eating their organic food, and lots of it, and a whole variety. So if we want to learn lessons in resilience, we need to look to these lessons for sure. But I'm just going to show a photo real quick of a typical scene in the market. This woman brings down her hierbas, her herbs, her onions, her radishes, lettuces, medicinal herbs, and just sets up there in the market on a Saturday or a Thursday and sells her produce. It's a pretty special place. So we have about 10 minutes left, and I'm going to keep moving with questions. I'm just going to kind of scroll through these. Just sorry. A question for Alfredo. ¿Usted puede explicar los fases de la milpa, por favor?
Could you explain the phases of milpa?
¿Y cuándo o dónde se plantan los árboles frutales o los que son para madera? Y hay algunos árboles que se deja para...
There are some trees that are led just to rest. Yeah, great. We produce like corn. We wait for the corn. We wait for winter, but it's pretty risky because the corn production is pretty risky. Winter starts in May. So if it is not too long, we can harvest. And otherwise, it is really low, the production. We plant beans in August, September. There is a moisture and bean can survive. Then concerning fruit trees like lemon trees, avocado trees, orange trees, banana trees, we use forest systems at the very beginning of winter, and we take advantage of several crops that are linked to coffee. We introduce caoba or precious woods that can generate some income. And if we have a small harvest of coffee, we can have papaya in the agroforestal system. We can have yucca, malanga. We can generate our own firewood in order to use it to cook. Then fruit tree, we are starting to implement agroforest systems. On the slopes, and the objective is to have different alternatives of income and different alternatives of producing food. And that's why we use an agroforest system where we can help the environment, we can produce food, we can conserve big and small trees, preserve the water area, because we are in a water recharge zone. So our work is basically restoration of the south of Guatemala, and we use the agroforestal systems. That's the thing that we have. We cannot go for the monocultives because we are risking a big part of our environment. And that's what we are doing now. We use these agroforestal systems. We are introducing new crops because we have seen some results. We have seen results and we defend our results. And we can deal with any crisis. I don't know if I really gave an answer to the question. Yeah, thank you, Alfredo.
Just a little bit, 30 seconds of context. When he says canicula, canicula is a inter-wet season dry spell. And it used to last, 2 weeks, Alfredo? 2 weeks, 10 days to 20 days. Now, sometimes these dry spells last 2 months. And these are all dry farmers. So they farm based on rainfall. Most don't have irrigation, especially in milpa, because this is grown at extension, it's arable. So what's happening in this region in particular, which is called the Dry Corridor of Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, it's a region that's expanding with climate change. Their milpa production, which is ancient, it's thousands of years old there, is no longer becoming viable in many areas because they have these inner wet season dry spells that kill the entire crop, even with huge amounts of organic matter. So they're diversifying, which is a really interesting thing, I mean, for us to contemplate. Alfredo his project is based on buen vivir, ancestral values, practices, crops, but they're seeing the need to diversify, to change from what was considered traditional to something that's new. Not altogether new. There's always been agroforestry there, but not, people grew milpa. So this is a big part of their project, is to try to adapt to what's going on. And I can say I've seen the adaptation, and it's amazing. And again, it's something that just development projects, the UN, the World Bank, they need to be looking to these folks if they want answers to adapting to climate change and mitigation. We have time for one more question, and I'm going to fire it at Gerald here. The question is, what's being grown now on the farms that previously grew the black oats?
Am I on? Yeah, right. Yeah, what's taken over is because farmers have turned to growing barley. They don't grow wheat anymore. They buy animal feed like soya from abroad to satisfy the protein they need in their feed. But going back like to my father's time, and what we're trying to do here is farmers were totally sustainable within themselves. They grew the corn to feed their animals on the farm. It was totally sustainable within the area you had, dominated the amount of animals you could keep. But now we've gone into industrial farming. There's no point having cows which are, you've only got 50 plus. Today you've got to have 500 to make it profitable. One of the main things as well is that the price. If you compare the price of wheat compared to the price of fuel, petrol, wheat should be £600 a ton. But you know what we produce on the farm, we've been squeezed out down the price by supermarkets because they want a more commodity to make profit for shareholders. They shouldn't be investment shareholders in food. Food is a priority, and it should be owned by all of us. And all I'm going back to saying is we should buy locally, turn your back on the supermarket, and support your local farmers. Together, we would be powerful.
Well said. Thank you, Gerald.
Can I ask one question to Alfredo? Has he had any, did he have any challenges from big companies like Monsanto, Syngenta, Bayer?
Es una gran amenaza para
They are a big threat because they are destroying nature.
Yeah.
And for the human cycle and the cycle of nature. We need to preserve our nature.
Yeah.
We can live under a scheme. No, we do not have to follow this scheme. We cannot keep on destroying the land, destroying life. I think that if we are, I think that that's the reason why we defend a dignified human life. We don't want to be linked or related with some proposals that want to destroy nature and human life, the human lives that we are living in this land today.
No, yeah. No, I totally agree, because we should care for nature, because nature can carry on without us. I thank you so much for being able to talk to you. To me, it's a privilege to actually talk to you. And thank you so much. And I wish you the best. I hope one day I'll have the privilege that we can meet up. If you ever come to Wales, you're invited to come to my farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. It's a dream of mine to bring Alfredo and his family here. So I think one day we'll make it happen.
Great. Thank
And
you.
Feliciano. All right, everyone.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you so much.
Muchísimas gracias, usted.
Thank you
Alfredo.
so much, Alfredo, and to your family as well. Thank you to Gerald. It is a pleasure. It is a big pleasure, Nathan. It has been incredible to be here with you on this meeting and to have this conversation about our reality. I'm pleased to meet you. And I send you lots of hugs from Guatemala. And I'll see you soon. See you soon.
Thank you, everybody. It's been my pleasure. Gerald, thank you. Amazing to meet you, and we'll meet in person very soon.
Thank you.